Good afternoon again, everyone, and thank you for still being around for this session. I appreciate it. The title of my presentation this afternoon is Mapping a Protocol for More Effective Communication of Transformative Agreements. There's an alternative title as well, Transformative Agreements, a Greek Tragedy in One Act, which I'll explain. I'm going to skip the abstract, just to give you some background. Rhodes University became a signatory to the Berlin Declaration on Open Access to Knowledge in the Sciences and Humanities, 24th of October 2013. I think we were about 5 or 6 years after Stellenbosch, if I remember correctly. We've had a repository for more than 20 years already. Library organizational restructuring over a number of years have taken place, and we finally established a digital scholarship unit and with a lot of research-focused integrated processes. We also host a number of events. There's a lot of conversations going on, a lot of communication with academics. We also have various exciting projects, including the ELRC 30-Year Knowledge Commons project, the SCG Web Portal project, etc. So so much have been going on at Rhodes, and we thought, we have really been making inroads. We are well established in what we're doing, only to discover that we might have an issue. Which brings me to the point of reflection. In March 2023, we received a notice regarding non-use of a token available in a current transformative agreement that we have. And my immediate reaction to this, unfortunately, was forwarded to me. I don't receive those notes, but just shows you the importance of understanding these notices from the publishers. And I wondered, why would somebody not make use of a token that's available for publication? Why would they rather prefer to go a different route? In this case, they went to a different journal. And this specifically, this person is an NRF B-rated person that I went to. And I'm going to read you the response. Hence, I said it's a tragedy. And I thought, well, let me face the spectre. And it's definitely, I was shocked when I saw this. And I hope it doesn't happen to you at your institutions, but I do believe Rhodes have done a lot, but I cannot think that it won't happen at any other institution out there. All right, so I'm going to read to you, and you've got the highlights in front of you. When I asked the head of research about this option with the specific vendor, she had no knowledge of it. So I have avoided selecting it since then because I assumed it was a case of the publisher unnecessarily trying to take some money from Rhodes as an institution that could be better spent elsewhere. There is no advantage from my standpoint in publishing open access, and there can sometimes be a bit of a stigma associated with doing so because it implies you had to pay to have something published. So it is something I tend to avoid, unless there is a beneficial reason, such as supporting a close collaborator with a special issue that justifies it. In one response, an academic broke my spirit and the hard work of a number of people at Rhodes University. And this is what it felt like. Sisyphus' eternal torture, doomed to carry this weight, and when you get to the top of the hill, only to have this massive weight, this rock, roll back to the very bottom of the mountain. So after a couple of days, after I took medicine and things, we finally got to a point where I said, let's sit down, let's consider what has happened. So we had a brainstorming session, those people involved in open access and supporting research, etc. And then it struck us. The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. And I want that really to sink in for a second. We've been advocating for more than 20 or 15 years to 20 years. We've been talking at all fora, etc. Why has this message not sunk in? And this B-rated person, can you imagine his sphere of influence? What can they do? The extent of harm by a single statement, what can it do to their policy, or at least the strategy of the library? So we did some introspection, and as we know, introspection is not a fun process. At an institutional level, part of the introspection, I'm going to ask this as questions, by the way, and I would like you to add to this. The reason I designed this set of questions is because this is what we asked, and we realized this can be a very good checklist and can be added to. So please, and especially I'm looking at the universities, Free State, Stellenbosch, Pretoria, that has very successful programs already. Dorette, I know she spoke about what they do, etc. So please add to this. But at the institutional strategy level, I raise some questions. Do we discuss transformative agreements and other agreements with APCs with the research office? Seems like a fair question, seems like a very simple question. But obviously, our head of research did not. Well, we might communicate with them, but do they believe what we're saying? Do they buy into this? Is open science on the DVC for Research and Innovation's agenda? And I'm trying to analyze the reports to see if it actually is. Is this strategy reflected in the finance budget of the organization? And can the library influence this budget? Reminding you that APCs are not controlled by the library at Rhodes, it's controlled by the research office. Going on to the library in terms of internal strategy, are our actions in the library indicative of a single vision relating to open science and the various aspects thereof? And Maria raised something very important yesterday when she said, I don't know if it was in a conversation or in a presentation, but she said she wants everybody in the library to know as much as possible and be able to assist everybody. And I thought, well, have we done this, or do we rely on the individuals? So is this a shared vision amongst all our library staff? Is everyone in the library on board? Do they know what transformative agreements are? Do they know what open access and open science, digital humanities, and all those various aspects of what we are heading towards, what those things are? Are we organizationally structured for optimal support of the strategy? I believe we are, but with a caveat, which I'll show you at the end. Sorry, I'm not normally a heavy breather. I'll stand up. All right. Now, as part of the library internal processes, we looked at who is responsible for communicating the availability and conditions of these agreements. We know from SANIC office, some of these agreements would go to the ERM librarian, or in our case, the principal librarian for learning resources management, and they then would have to communicate with the internal group, whether it's your research or digital scholarship unit, etc. Now, the question is it actually taking place? And who is really responsible for this? Are the licenses and the conditions thereof communicated to the digital scholarship unit, or to the research office, or to both? And then what is the role of digital scholarship unit? Who communicates actually with the research office? Who should be? Who's responsible for this? Because you also don't want to create multiple conversations and, keep some units out of the loop. And then also the question, what is the role of the faculty teams in the strategy? So another question, who is responsible for administration, especially where the APCs are not residing with the library or the management APC fund? So who does the training on the various APC portals? We realized our ERM librarian sends the APC portal information through to the research office, and 6 months down the line, they say, well, what should I do with this? Not having even gone into this. Luckily, this has changed some of the behaviors at Rhodes. Who focuses on analyzing usage or uptake and providing informative reports that can actually inform our strategy and our operations going forward? And how does this really inform the research office and the library? In terms of the research office itself, does the research office staff understand APC's tokens? We discovered that they're also administrative staff in those offices, not just researchers. They're administrative in many ways. Does the research office or the library actually communicate with academics? And again, whose role is this? Right? What I find is that the libraries, and some very successfully, drive the strategy very well. But at Rhodes, it seems like as long as the library is driving something, are we really having impact? As soon as the research office drives something, you see a change. Do the researchers understand transformational agreements in the context of open science And do they care? I still have 10 minutes, apparently. Right. But I'll not use all of it. And also, I started looking at the reports, because you would think that your reports is indicative of the strategy. And I started analyzing the annual reports, our quarterly reports. And quarterly reports, we have unit reports and not really strategy reports. We're trying to change this. And we heard this morning as well that we're really not wanting to know how busy people are. We want to know how effectively are we supporting our services and being able to support our strategies. I looked at library committee reports, library management reports, library faculty reports, research reports, etc. And I could see a slight disjuncture amongst these reports. But more importantly, what is also important is to understand communication is often not what is being said and not what is being said. Focus on what you're not hearing. And this is a picture of our academic council. Some of them do think they're gods. So we have to enlighten the gods. I'm not sure how we're going to get that right. And thank you, Malavika, for this yesterday, because this actually expresses in a single sentence what has happened at Rhodes. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. The academic culture needs to change. The academic culture needs to understand open science and be willing participants and not forcibly dragged into what they think is something that the library has come up with to keep them busy with. There are victories, but often we have to understand, and again, sticking to the Greek environment, some of this feels like Pyrrhic victories. Now, for those of you that don't know, Greek king Pyrrhus, 2 battles with the Romans, depleted most of his army. And his famous words were, "If we are victorious in one more battle with the Romans, we shall be utterly ruined, because I'll have no army left." And I realized this is actually quite important, because as things grow, we think we're structurally correct to support this strategy. But I know, looking at all the incredible work that's being done at Rhodes, I realize we're understaffed. Or we are not optimally making use of other staff, like the faculty teams. What are they doing? But that's for us to work on. So from my side, thank you very much.
Is all it takes to nurture, change tomorrow, touch the future.
Thank you, Wynand. That was excellent.